I'm sorry, did you hit live already? Well, yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, I hit live already. So, good evening, afternoon, morning, night, whenever you find a way to see or watch this. We had a last second, I guess, kind of technical difficulty with a friend of the pod, Duane, from the Yard HBCU Twitter, which you can follow here. It's always funny, like pointing to banners because I'm pointing right, but it's showing left. But it's a good thing that's down here, so I can point to it directly. Duane, it's been a while. How's everything going? And I know we talked about MEAC Media Day and everything, so I guess just welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me again, Omar. Things are going extremely well. Football season is right around the corner, but you know me, I'm a jerk. I love saying that football season's always been here with the USFL and CFL. Why is everyone crying and why is everyone making a big deal out of it? But I get it. It's American football, and it's football that we're going to all want to really watch. Can you name me any of the quarterbacks from the USFL? I doubt very seriously. But I digress. I'm not here to throw shade on any league right now. I'm just excited. College football is right around the corner. I was just in the process of setting up my schedule of the places where I'm going to be this year, and hopefully I'll get a chance to see everyone when I'm on the road.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us are forming our list of games where we're going to go. I know me for sure. I've been sending some emails, possibly at or not at work. Applying for credentials and seeing how to do that process. But it's a fun, exciting time, and there's still some off-season talk popping off. Just like honestly, wherever. So we're gonna cover three topics on this podcast. Three off-season topics. You know, I guess. Well, a couple are sort of like future topics. One is a thing that's gonna be happening this year. So I'm excited to talk about it. So our first topic we're gonna talk about is the resurrection of an old rivalry. And no, we're not talking about the backyard brawl on September 1st, I believe, that Thursday night game, West Virginia Pitt. But recently, I think this was the week of MEAC Media Day, where Lincoln and Morgan State scheduled a game where I think Lincoln's getting 30 or 40,000 to come to Baltimore, come to Hughes Stadium, and play Morgan State. And so I'm surprised because this is the first meeting of these two since 1954, and this is an old rivalry. Of course, Lincoln they recently resurrected their program in 2008, but I'm surprised that they had not met up in the 14 seasons, or I guess 13 if they didn't play in the pandemic. 13 seasons that Lincoln's been back as a program. So Duane, do you have any initial thoughts on this rivalry being resurrected?
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see this matchup coming up in the near future. Because what is the first year? It's 2024, right?
Yeah, it's a one-off game in 2024.
Yeah, so I expect Coach Damon Wilson to be at Morgan State at that point in time because, of course, he just got hired this last season. So that means he'll end up facing an old foe of his from the CIAA days, and that's in Lincoln. And of course, when he used to spend time there at Bowie State. So I actually had an opportunity to ask Coach Wilson about that matchup, and I was kind of surprised because he had no idea that the matchup had been signed yet. But his.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No, I was going to say, his focus is really week one, against Georgia Southern, and he's like, I can't necessarily look that far in the future. I'm still worried about game one and year one. Before I can even think about that, it's cool that game is going to be there, and I don't even know necessarily if he's going to be facing Coach Josh Dean, his whole foe, or the current head coach over at Lincoln right now. If Dean is even going to be at Lincoln at that point in time in 2024, I'm not wishing any bad luck on Dean. I'm just saying we just don't know what his future holds in 2 years. But yeah, he's not even necessarily worried about that matchup as of right now. He's just worried about Georgia Southern and getting his career started at Morgan.
And that makes sense too. The coach to athletic director kind of pipeline team for the future matchups. Generally, most matchups are scheduled like 5, 6, 7, even a decade in advance. So I guess coaches aren't worried about that today. 2 years, that's pretty close. But again, I guess for a first-year coach, you want to start off with game one. But I'm surprised that I guess the the game is kind of publicized with a whimper. I mean, the first meeting between these two, and I'm not saying it's a huge rivalry. Like I guess like Grambling Southern, I mean, or any literally any rivalry in the SWAC. But
Yeah.
It's an old rivalry resurrected. It's a Mid-Atlantic rivalry between two prominent cities, HBCUs in two prominent cities, Philadelphia and Baltimore. So I'm surprised that there wasn't like a huge, like a bigger announcement from the athletic department for sure. But I think interestingly enough, I think just given the proximity, I think this has a chance to, if this first year goes well, potentially be a more common occurrence as well. I know Morgan State has, I guess, other rivalries to focus on too, like particularly the Battle of Greater Baltimore with Howson, which seems to be a pretty big rivalry for both schools. Both schools are invested in that one. But I want to ask too. It's like with the MEAC kind of, I guess, as we'll talk about later on, I guess searching for a flagship classic for their conference. Can you see this one sort of being molded into a classic? And when I wrote about this, I was thinking not exactly M&T Bank Stadium, because the optics of a huge stadium and, of course, cost of renting said stadium as well would get in the way, but potentially in, I guess, Philadelphia's MLS Park. I forget the name of the park, or not park, but stadium, or another site.
It could be. I mean, depending upon how competitive this game becomes and how rampant the Lincoln fans are, because that's one of the things that unfortunately I just hadn't had an opportunity to experience just yet is going to see a game with Lincoln in it and how well their fan base. Well, if it's in Philly, they won't have to travel far. Same thing for people from Baltimore. It'll only be like an hour and a half drive, but it's something that could be doable. I just want to see. Year one, 2024 will be an interesting indicator to see exactly if that's something that they can sustain for years to come. So I'm hoping, God willing, that I can make my way to that game come 2024 to see exactly how that matchup lines up.
Absolutely, and I mean, yeah, the first matchup in about 70 years should be fun. I mean, Lincoln, they I don't think they stack well against FCS schools. I know they went to Boiling Springs this past year, played Gardner Webb, and they got shut out. And I think Gardner Webb laid 50 on them too. So they have some work to do to be competitive in this game. But Morgan State has had some hard times as well. But an old rivalry resurrected is always good too. And I mean, honestly, I don't know if Howard is too good for Lincoln, but I would love to see Howard schedule them too. But if Howard can schedule Virginia University Lynchburg, then I think there's room in their schedule for an actual NCAA opponent. No shade toward Virginia University Lynchburg, because they're doing their best to form a schedule as a non-affiliated school. But it's just I guess that NCAA affiliation kind of helps in terms of selling tickets and credibility from the outside.
Oh, most definitely. And then one of the things, I don't know if you're necessarily aware of this, but of course, Coach Josh Dean up there at Lincoln, his dad, Vernon Dean, was a former Washington football player. So, of course, he has that connection here. They recruit relatively heavy in this area as well. So, with a lot of those kids having families here, and if they were capable of course, they travel down to Bowie to play, but that would just be another reason for the parents of those kids to come out and see them play in the DC area again.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I didn't know that as well, but I mean, the DMV is a rich recruiting area for sure, and it's an opportunity for Lincoln to boost their recruiting as well and everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess before we close the book on that topic, if anything else to add about that, excited for this new rivalry to come up and potentially could be a classic, if all things go well in 2024.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for as well. But, back to Coach Dean being from the area, the one thing that I did learn about him that kind of sticks a very interesting, I guess, salt in my sweet lemonade or sweet tea is the fact that Coach Dean is a Cowboys fan, even though his dad played for the Washington football team. I still find that kind of troubling. But
that's that's strange. Honestly, that's really strange. Yeah, I guess I get my fair share of heat as a Niners fan in Cowboys country out here in West Texas. So I'm confused myself, about by that. But yeah, that's really weird. Yeah, I don't know with the way that the football team that the Commanders have been playing. I don't know if I can blame him, but yeah, I
But
guess
I mean,
before
during his childhood, they were winning Super Bowls when he was a child. His dad was on Super Bowl winning teams, and he just couldn't. Yeah, I don't know. I guess he was just trying to be a rebel in the house. You know, I enjoy
probably.
picking with Coach Dean about that though. Yeah, when I first heard that, I said, wait a minute, that don't. Yeah, I guess.
It must be the blue uniforms. It must be the uniforms. That's probably why I likes him, I guess.
I guess I don't know. I know a lot of these kids around here, man, that love that team, love that star on the side of their helmet. I guess. I guess. Yeah. But enough about them. I think I've talked enough about the Cowboys for a day at least. Yeah.
Me too.
So what's
Me too.
next?
Any cowboy mentions are too much on this podcast, but but on to the next topic. I guess we're sort of going up the hill in terms of big news. But recently, Howard announced that their Truth and Service Classic game this year would be against Harvard. A game moved at Audi Field, which it was a special event. An Ivy League school visiting HBCU. I don't think it's happened before. In my research, of course, there have been a couple visits to Harvard and Yale in the past, but it's never happened where a Ivy League school would visit an HBCU. So it's a special event, and I wouldn't have had a problem if it was played at Green. Get the student section involved and everything on campus. It's a special event, but it makes sense. It's moved to Audi Field, and the time's TBA. So, which gives all intent for that game to be televised, probably on CNBC, like Howard's game against Morehouse. So I guess, and I guess before I ask you your opinion on this, I mean, Duane, I'd like to say that we called this one, and I think it's time for me to put up this banner. Yep. it's time that so we called this one back in February. I guess if not called it, discussed the possibility heavily in this video that you can look up in the banner below. What was your initial reaction to this news? I know I texted you from work right away when I got the Twitter notification. So, what's your reaction to this news, your thoughts, and I guess the future implications?
Well, I was rather excited, but I like you. I was really hoping for that game to be played in Green Stadium. I wanted to see exactly what type of response at the fan base there would be willing to give Harvard coming in to Georgia Avenue. It's kind of reminiscent to me to what I just saw just a few months ago with Notre Dame playing in the Burr against Howard for the first time, and to see the fans of Notre Dame come on the campus, get that HBCU experience here on campus, and to see this the carry away, well, the walk off, I guess, of their enjoyment of being in an HBCU environment. So yeah, I was hoping to have that same thing with Harvard. Looks like we won't get it, but it's not necessarily going to be a bad thing. The fact that the game's going to be played in Audi Field, and you actually have an opportunity for fans who wouldn't necessarily come to Green Stadium to actually go to Audi Field and get a chance to witness that game there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I'm a mixed bag because I love bowl games. Honestly, I love the civic quality, and I guess the civic nature of bowl games where you got people going to pro stadiums or sites that they wouldn't go to for tourist reasons too. It's honestly it's a case in social studies. To be honest, it's a case in social studies. But yeah, I mean, I could have gone either way with this. I think for them, I guess for them to announce it this late, it probably took months and months of discussions as to whether they should move it as in terms of the the almighty dollar. Whether this was a good economic thing, because looking at the prices for Howard home games for season tickets, and we talked about this a little bit before, where you said they have 2 home games, and I said they have 3 because it's in DC anyway. I mean, the cheapest price for season tickets right now is $130. So I mean, I would be surprised if Howard is not making a huge boon, because right now the only way to guarantee your spot for the Truth and Service game is to buy season tickets, and that includes a ticket to Howard homecoming and everything, which of course is a huge deal to fans and alums as well. So
of course,
I mean, yeah, like I think with the discussions, like they thought about the special experience. I'm sure the Notre Dame game was something that was on the top of their mind too, but also the cash value that they'd be getting as well. I mean, just comparing, I guess, upgrading from, I would say, I'm not sure how much the Washington Wizards arena seats, but I guess going up from, I think it's a bigger leap in terms of like going from I guess selling more tickets at a neutral per se basketball game than sort of a neutral football game where you're going from 7,600 seats to about 20,000 seats as well. Um, and the travel's less too because, I mean, of course, you got fans coming from Boston, about like 4 or 5 hour drive, but also you have a great amount of Harvard grads, whether they're in the government, um, I guess in the government in general, and just all the industries down there. So I guess it's all intents and purposes. I think it was just like an easy, I guess, economic decision, but we'll see because you were at the Truth and Service game last year for a game that's obvious that obviously like Bison fans hold near to their hearts, the real HU, and it just didn't seem to be. I guess it left much to be desired. So I'll leave it to you now.
Well, I didn't actually go to that game. I did watch it on
Oh, I
TV.
thought you did. Oh, I thought you did.
No,
Okay,
I
my
didn't
bad.
make it. I didn't make it. But I will say for their first ever game there, between those two rivals, the stadium holds about 20,000, and they still got 15,000 in there, which is still a pretty good number. No, with the understanding that, of course, um, Green only holds 10. So, would you capable of getting about another 5,000 in there? I thought it was a wonderful, a better decision to have it there than to have it at Green. And I'm thinking they would probably end up getting the same type of numbers against Harvard as well, somewhere between 15 and 17,000. Um, trying to figure out exactly how large of an alumni base that Harvard has here in the district. I'm guessing it is relatively large. So this would be an opportunity that they'll get a chance to see their alma mater compete here in the DC area. As well as getting the chance to see them play in the stadium where they don't necessarily have to worry about parking. Because if you've never been to a game at Green, parking there is basura. Yeah, it's pretty bad. It just happens to be that, thankfully, I am a DC native. I live in the city, and I still have, well, not still, but I have my parking pass for parking within the city. So I'm able to certain spots that people who don't live in the city aren't. So yeah, it's just having that ability to be able to park at the stadium it gives a better option for fans who want to come out and see that game than to do it at Green, where there is limited
Yeah,
parking.
for sure. So what you're telling me is, if I were to go to this game, public transportation will be my best friend. That's what I was guessing too, because I've heard stories about a DMV traffic and everything.
Oh, you mean for Audi Field?
Yeah, for Audi Field.
Um,
That so
that's the thing. You can catch public transportation there, but you can also drive there. There is parking there.
okay.
No, what I was saying
Well,
is that the parking is bad at Green.
oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Parking at Green
Sorry. Yeah.
is yeah, yeah. It's pretty bad.
I just assumed it was Audi you're talking about. My bad on that.
No, that's
But
fine. That's fine.
well, yeah, I guess yeah. Even too, like parking, that's a huge contribution to the almighty dollar too. And parking these pro stadiums, it is just not cheap to say the least. So just bring back some bad memories from past games this fall, just in terms of having to pay for parking. But
Yeah.
that's, I mean, again, everything is encompassed in it as well too. Something I do want to add to the actions on the field too. I guess people are looking at this and seeing Howard's going to get kind of embarrassed, in their showcase game. I would caution them on that thought because while Harvard was picked to finish first in the 2022 Ivy League media poll, I mean, Howard had some close games against some quality competition. They only lost to South Carolina State by 3, and they beat the NEC champ Sacred Heart 22-17 last season. And that's a Sacred Heart team that had a strong team. I think they went. I think they ended up going either like 8-4 or whatever. But they took Holy Cross down to the wire. I mean, a really good Holy Cross team that's looking to four-peat a team that's honestly a sleeper in most FCS circles to make it deeper in the playoffs this year, just with the experience in that program. But they took down that Sacred Heart team. So I'm not going to go out here on this podcast and say that Howard's going to beat Harvard. but I just don't think it's going to be an embarrassing game. I think Howard's going to stay in the game. And it'll be a game in the fourth quarter, I think too. So I mean, I guess you follow the MEAC more intently. I want to know your thoughts about just this outlook of Howard this season and how they match up with the 10,000 men of Harvard.
I'm going to be intrigued to see exactly how they play in that game. Their defense is most definitely improved. Howard and with Quentin Williams has the longest tenured starting quarterback within the conference. So he's currently in since they didn't play during the pandemic, this will be his second full season under the system. So he completely understands what's going on with that system. Talking to Coach Scott, he said that he completely trusts the quarterback, and the quarterback completely trusts the play calling ability of the offensive coordinator. So that comfort level there has most definitely grown. So I'm expecting some interesting things there coming from Georgia Avenue. That they have a wide receiver that's an offense performer. In that deep running back room, they currently have two of their running backs that are on the preseason All-MEAC team, along with big-time recruit Eaton James, the son of Edgerman James, that's going to be in that running back by committee for them as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Howard looks this upcoming season within the conference.
Yeah, I'm intrigued too, for sure. I mean, I've not looked at the MEAC preseason teams, but yeah, they have a lot of talent on this team. I know Ian Wheeler was a guy that I think Jackson and I talked about before. I know. Looking at the East West Shrine Bowl, not game. I always find myself calling it game still. 1,000. They had Darian Brokenber and then another lineman that was on that. So there's plenty of talent to go around for Howard. So it will be intriguing to see for sure. But yeah, I'm excited for it. And we'll see. I guess October 15th can't come soon enough. It's just such a huge weekend for classics. Just that whole weekend. You have the Jackson State Bethune-Cookman game out of Jacksonville. You have this game, and then you have on Sunday for the capper. You got the River City HBCU Classic. Just an amazing weekend for classics. I know our friend CFP Campus Store Mike. He doesn't like these neutral site games, but me, I mean, I love it. So some are happy, some are not. As life goes. So.
Oh yeah. Of course, the neutral site games, and I understand why Mike doesn't like the neutral site games. He loves to be on campus, so I'm not mad at him for that. But they have their charm. It will if the stadium is good enough. But to your point about Howard and how they're going to look this year, like you said, with Brokenberg coming back this year as well, we kind of talked about before the show how you're picking Delaware State as your sleeper pick to win the conference this year. I think the conference is extremely deep this upcoming season. I don't necessarily expect a whole lot out of not Howard, but Morgan State, being that they just hired Damon Wilson just a few months ago. So of course, he has some familiar faces on his coaching staff. With Sewell, who originally left to go to Alabama State, who is now joining Coach Wilson there at Baltimore. But I'm just waiting to see whether or not he's going to be able to impart his coaching style and his playing style into his players, and how quickly they'll be able to pick it up, and how quickly this program will be able to turn around. But with the likes of the favorites of South Carolina State, North Carolina Central was picked to finish in second. Norfolk State, who started the year off, who started their conference play off wonderfully to only lose 3 straight at the end of the season. They look pretty strong. I'm intrigued to see what they look like without their quarterback, their starting quarterback from last year. And then, like you said, we talked about Delaware State and also Howard, who have a lot of talented people are for whatever reason ignoring. So I think this season might be a hot box. I like to call it the 4. So yeah, if you have at least 4 wins within the conference, you're winning a share of the conference. That's going to be a given. But But yeah, if you can go ahead and run the table within your conference, you've done something remarkable. I'm not expecting that to happen, but yeah, if the conference winner comes away only losing one or less conference game, I will be surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And like we saw last year too, the potential that the final weekend of the season had for an insane tiebreaker. Like they rolled out the MEAC rolled out the scenarios the week before, you know, saying like, the potential that's had to happen. And I mean, we talked on this podcast before about the potential of a MEAC title game, to avoid situations like this. I mean, this is a great point about if you go 4-1, you're likely winning at least a share of the conference. I mean, that's an amazing point. I mean, and I guess before we move on, like I just want to mention the 2014 Morgan State. I guess was it a 5-way tiebreaker? The 5-way
Highway tie half the
is
conference. It's like over, and you get a title. Half of the conference got it. Yeah.
that was with 10
2014.
teams too.
Um,
That was with 10 teams.
yeah. So a year that I do want to forget, most definitely. But ever since that year, my thought process was, you know what? These ties of at least three or more teams is going to end up being a possibility again, and it most definitely happened again when we had three teams get a share of the title just a few years ago. I don't know if we'll get to that now with only 6 teams within the conference, but yeah, we can most definitely have a situation where we can get at least a tie, if not 3 teams in there to get a share.
Yeah, I mean it's the only conference where it's almost like a 5 game season because all the other conferences in FCS are looking forward to the playoffs. Of course, they're looking forward to make a run, but it's like you got the 5 game season, and then you have that one game that's on a huge stage. Of course, talking about the Celebration Bowl. I mean, it's just so unique, and I like it. I want to see the conference expand, which I guess is a nice lead into our last topic. But it's just something unique and beautiful, which now that we segue to our last topic, earlier last week, Campbell surprisingly joined the Colonial Athletics Association as I think the 14th full member and 15th football member. Um, excuse me. So I mean, presumably they took the spot that was supposed to be Howard's, as Howard turned down the MEAC. So that domino fell, but that leaves the Big South at only 4 teams football wise. Basketball, they're fine because they have a ton of non-football schools. I think they're at about 9 or 10, schools right there in basketball or Olympic sports, I should say, because that's not the only, Olympic sport that matters. But well, I guess what do you see? Do you think the MEAC is primed to make a move on, I guess, a pair of schools? Because I think whichever way that they're going to poach from the Big South, they'd have to take a pair of schools and leave a pair there. So I guess I want to know your thoughts on like the whole situation, what this means for MEAC expansion. And I know you talked to the MEAC commissioner at MEAC Media Day. I don't know if you brought up that question of expansion there, but yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on this, Duane.
Actually, I did bring up the question of expansion to Commissioner Steele, but it was more so the stereotypical aspect of that question, which is okay, and it's most definitely from the aspect that a lot of fans have been asking about over the past few seasons, which are, well, number one, are they going to end up potentially poaching teams from the CIAA, being, of course, if they share a footprint, and then of course question number two being the infamous HBCU Super Conference talk that has most definitely come more to the forefront over the past few months. Now, the first part of that question came out of, as of right now, and I'm sure that I'm phrasing this correctly. I do believe that the commissioner said that there's a moratorium on Division II programs moving up to Division I as of right now. So that's something that they most definitely can't do. But of course, one of the things that these programs will have to think about, of course, is the fiscal aspect of moving up to Division I, which of course means more scholarships, upgrading your facilities, being able to upgrade your staff so that you can be able to um, do a lot of stats in terms of both coaching and your front office staff, so you're capable of doing things on a Division I level. Um, but yeah, it's just having that understanding that those things need to take place. And as of right now, a lot of these programs don't want to end up spending the money on an annual basis and up to the division. And even if they did moratorium, now the question about the HBCU mega conference was literally shot down not just by um, Commissioner Stills at the MEAC media day a few weeks ago, but it was also shut down by Commissioner McClellan at the SWAC media day. So this is something again that some coaches have come out and said that this would be a wonderful idea to have this HBCU super conference. It's just that these commissioners most definitely, one, don't want to go into the business of having to widen their footprint and having to spend more money on travel in order to do stuff like that. Two, what programs would end up going into the super conference and what programs will be left out, and what happens to those programs that would be left out of that super conference. And then number three, coming from Commissioner Stills, um, and this is something that I completely agree with. You know, why should we come up with one big super conference when we could just continue to have two strong individual Division I conference HBCU conferences as is? And I'm right there with on that, especially as it pertains to having HBCU tournaments like the basketball tournaments, baseball tournaments, and so on. You most definitely get those automatic bids from those conference champions. So I'm in agreement with her on that. Um, but I will say this: it was just released earlier this week where the MEAC dropped their 5-year strategic and long-term plan. My question is, though, after reading it, is what is the plan? I don't know if you've had an opportunity to see it, Omar, but it's a 6-page document. And within that document, matter of fact, I think I still have it open on my phone as of right now. Let me see if I do. So, like, the first page is the cover page. Second page is their mission. The third page is their vision. Fourth page is their core values. And page 5 is actually their goals. And then page 6 is their closing page. So of the 6 pages, only one page necessarily has their goals, and it's not detailed of what their goals are going to be. So it doesn't necessarily detail an actual plan. I'm guessing that with everything that has been talked about in terms of expansion for the conference, they felt as though that they needed to release something to kind of quiet the fan base. But with what they put out, it doesn't necessarily answer the question of what your plan is going to be. And then again, based upon the conversation that I had with Commissioner Stills just a few weeks ago, it seems as though that she understood that, of course, as of right now, they can't go to take teams from the Division II market, and they most definitely won't do this super conference merger with the SWAC. And so it seems as though that she was at that moment, because this was actually before the announcement of Campbell leaving the Big South, um, what their future was going to be in terms of expansion. Now, like you said, Campbell comes out, says that they're going to leave and go to the CAA, which kind of puts into question, would and could the MEAC go and potentially attempt to poach members from the Big South? Now, Omar, I don't know if you necessarily saw or not, but the Big South has merged with the OBC. And with that merger, I think that they're relatively comfortable there. But then I asked this question as it pertains to the MEAC, though. If you're looking to expand, what attractions do you have within the conference that makes me want to leave wherever I currently am to make me come to you? What are your media rights looking like? What type of fiscal share am I getting from that? How stable is your conference as of right now? Because there's been so much discussion about potential schools leaving, even though they came out with this whole media blitz or this PR
So it appears having a little bit of technical difficulties. Duane should be back promptly. Um, but as for those, I guess, as he was saying, he's talking about what stability does the MEAC have. For context, the MEAC has lost, I think, four schools. Let's see, is it four? Yeah, they lost four schools since 2020. You have NC Howard, or not Howard, it's NC Hampton, Bethune-Cookman, and Florida A&M. So right now, the MEAC sits at six schools, something we mentioned earlier in this podcast. And in terms of expansion, to lure those members away from the Big South, they would have to have some drawing factor. I guess before Duane comes back, talk about some of the teams from the Big South, and he mentioned the Big South OVC merger, where they're merging so they keep an automatic slot to the playoffs, to the FCS playoffs between them. Because for you to be an FCS playoff automatic qualifying conference, you have to have at least seven schools. You have to have at least seven schools. You can get a waiver. Okay, there we go. You're back. I know we had some technical difficulties, so I was kind of laying out the whole situation between the MEAC and the Big South. But I know you mentioned about what the MEAC can draw. I guess can give back to the schools as a draw from the Big South.
Yeah. I'm hoping. I'm not trying to remember or see exactly what it was that you missed. But yeah, that's my thing. What is your attraction to anyone, be it those members from the Big South or anyone else actually that will be your draw in terms of drawing me to the MEAC? I'm going to need stability and to make sure that the teams or the programs that are currently there within your conference are going to stay in the conference. And then again, like I was saying, the media rights. I want to know what those rights are, what type of agreement you're going to go into, and will there be a new one established at least, and will it be fiscally pleasing for me to come over to your conference and join it, whatever it's going to be. So, yeah, just the whole business aspect of it, and then the stability of moving over to the MEAC is something that any school that's looking to potentially join would most definitely be concerned about.
Yeah, and I agree completely about what the MEAC has to draw. But I guess compared to the OVC Big South merger, so potentially like the four schools in the Big South would probably fit in best as football only members. Um, because I mean the Big South is pretty stable as a basketball conference, as we mentioned before,
Hmm.
and even then you look at, I guess, and when I mentioned earlier that the schools have to be taken in pairs, you look at Charleston Southern and Gardner Webb. That's probably one pairing and travel partner. That's probably one travel partner pairing right there. You already have a solid corridor of schools in the Carolinas. You got Central, of course, South Carolina State, and then of course you got Norfolk State as well in the Tidewater area, which also isn't too far. So you have that to lean on. So I mean that's why having them as a football only member could be good as well. And if the MEAC were ever to do a sort of syndication thing like earlier today, we saw the SWAC unveil a great TV plan, a great local TV plan with Atlanta C&W to broadcast a whole list of game, essentially a game of the week. So if they can get like a regional TV sponsor, get on a RSN in that area, in the Carolinas, that would be a huge win for the conference. The other pair, of course, would be Brian and Robert Morris, who are in the Big South as football only members, with Brian housing their basketball in America East, and Robert Morris, in the Horizon League. Now, again, it just depends like what kind of skew you want your conference to have. If you add Brian and Robert Morris, your conference has more of a northeastern skew. You add Charleston Southern and Gardner Webb, you have a more southern skew. Either way, I feel like people are going to be unhappy. I guess with like there's more mouths to feed. You're more stable. It's kind of like a paradox. You're more stable, but because there's more mouths to feed, more people to make happy. You're also more unstable in a way. So
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see how they approach it too. I guess the one school that honestly I feel should get out of the OVC Big South merger is Bryant, because they are really on an island. I mean, I know them and Robert Morris have been conference mates in the NEC before, but Robert Morris is in the Pittsburgh area. That is so far from Rhode Island. At
Hmm.
least if Bryant were to join the MEAC as a football only member, they would have visits. I guess yearly visits to the Mid Atlantic area with Morgan State, Delaware State, and Howard in the area. And that's not to mention too that they'll have with 7 teams a 6-game conference schedule, so they can schedule as many regional opponents they want, to sort of fill that buffer. So that's my, I guess, best solution for it all. But I guess something we haven't even addressed is the thing about having two PWIs and HBCU conference that's not tied into the FCS playoffs. And something that I propose is having sort of a clause that sends a PWI champion of the MEAC to the playoffs. And essentially, like, I don't think that's too hard to do, because with two different conference mergers happening right now, to, I guess, give those said conferences spots, you're losing out on essentially what would be you're losing two automatic qualifying playoff spots. So that creates two at-large spots, of course. So I don't see why one of those at-large spots can't go to a Brian or Robert Morris, or whoever would potentially join the conference, as a champion. I don't get why you just couldn't flex an at-large spot there, but there's always, I guess, that sort of complication with the Celebration Bowl and FCS playoffs.
Yeah, and that's something that most definitely would have to be discussed in the near future as well. Is the future of the Celebrating Bowl? I'm guessing that not exposure, but expansion would make that game a little bit more comfortable as of right now, based instead of just having a 6-team conference, sending a representative there every year. But to your point, I don't know. I don't think. That is an interesting point. To see exactly how the organizers of the game would take it if the MEAC decided to start adding PWI members to their conference, and if they were to end up eventually winning the conference and being their representative within the Celebration Bowl. Because, of course, it's the HBC. Well, it's dubbed the HBCU championship game. But my question is, does it necessarily have to be an HBCU if they're a member of the HBCU conference? Now, of course, I asked that question out loud, and HBCU alums are cussing me out as they're watching this right now. Of course, right? And I get that, because that's the same type of discussion that Duane has in the CIAA. But, I mean, they are members of the conference. If you ask them to come in, then the validity of whether or not this is a HBCU national championship game kind of goes out of the window.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned the thing about the Celebration Bowl. I mean, shoot, I guess that there's nothing that a good old clause can't solve, But I guess, and I'm not as familiar with the CIAA and their teams and their sort of membership, I guess, culture. But I know the CIAA has Chuan as a member, a non-HBCU, and that's something that's sort of in our preview months ago in February. Where me and Jackson sat down and previewed the players. You mentioned Bryce Witt from Chuan being invited to that game, even though he was not, from an HBCU, he was an HBCU conference. So I guess that leads just to my question that, from experience, like how have CIAA members sort of embraced Chuan as a member, even though they're not a HBCU?
Based upon what I've seen, they've gotten used to it by now. And it's only a football member. For that anyway, but even with that, it's been going on for, I can't remember exactly how many years, but it's something that, of course, is long enough to the point that people outside of the people inside the conference don't necessarily complain about it, or I haven't seen them complain about it. But yeah, like you said, when it came to the what was it, the HBCU Legacy Bowl, I think it was with Bryce Witt. There was a question on whether or not, a qualifying HBCU student athlete who actually goes to an HBCU or attends an HBCU, if they were being left out because of Witt taking up a spot. But again, it goes back to the whole conversation that, hey, they aren't in the HBCU conference. What are you supposed to do? Well, I mean, I know what you could do. But if you're playing well enough within your HBCU conference, yeah, I don't have any issue with them participating in HBCU All-Star games. I don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're playing against HBCU opponents.
Yeah, no, I mean, Yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with it either. Of course, I mean, I follow. I mean, I don't really follow the CIAA in terms of HBCU. I should, competition's great there. Um, but yeah, like I mean, there's just so many angles to come at this with. It just looks like I know we mentioned, I guess, at the start of this, the option of D2 schools moving up, but again, the financial burden is just so huge that maybe for the stability of, I mean, I guess basketball's pretty stable too at this point because they have 8 members. The AQ's there. Football is really the only one that's in danger, but like I think something that I wrote about when Howard was looking at the CAA is like, even if the MEAC goes to 5 teams, like, does it really matter because they're not at 8, they're not automatic qualifier in the playoffs. So it's
Exactly.
like that's like, yeah, it's the expansion thing. I feel like maybe writers like me are kicking the expansion tires just for stuff to write about, which Lord knows I don't need more things to do, but I still write about it. So
But no, it's most definitely a conversation that's being had within the various conferences and their member institutions, especially if you're like the MEAC or the Big South, or the OVC, where you just seem to constantly being poached, or at least being eyed, in terms of you losing or having people come through and take members from your conferences. So yeah, it's most definitely a conversation that's being had, and there's speculation abound, not just with riders, but within the conference themselves. They're trying to figure out everything too. But one of the things that most definitely was a conversation was with the instability of everything that's going on in FBS football right now. We really don't know exactly how everything is going to play out. So that's one of the things that I know a couple of these commissioners that are looking to expand are still trying to get an understanding to before they make their move. But I know a lot of people who are out there are probably thinking to themselves, well, why don't they just be a little bit more proactive and just start going at programs and trying to see if um, you can get them to come to you. But again, it goes back to my whole point. What is your draw?
yeah, I mean, I think in terms of compared to other FCS conferences, because I mean, my stance, of course, being the football only approach. In terms of exposure, the MEAC has a lot more to offer in terms of exposure, because they have the weeknight games, which I mean, I guess programs like Charleston Southern, Gardner Webb, Robert Morris, and Bryant would be probably more open to moving games to a Thursday night because there's not as much as a community aspect and I guess tailgating aspect to their games too. So potentially moving a road game, say like maybe a South Carolina State Charleston Southern game at Charleston Southern, moving that to a Thursday night. You know, I know that's a bad idea now. I said that, but I guess
No,
like
it's
if
not actually, right? But
okay,
not to be too tough on my third hometown, but there were like only 6 seats there at Charleston Southern. I mean, I kid, but it's a small stadium in comparison. I know, well, one, like I said before, I lived in the Charleston area, so I would drive by the College of Charleston on a daily basis, and I noticed how small it was from the outside. I had an opportunity to go back in 2019 to see my Aggies play there before they became a member of the Big South, and realized how small it was on the inside. And that was one of the things I know a lot of my Aggie alums um, complained about when they were looking for tickets. They were like, dude, where do we sit? Because there's only bleachers on one side of the stadium, and I guess we have to bring our chairs if we want to come sit on the other side. But in a situation like that, yes, where you would be concerned about potential attendance, yeah, you could probably have that. You could most definitely have that game on a Thursday night. Yeah.
for sure. I mean, it's like no other conference is really having I guess not really network, but I guess games played on cable TV. I know the CAA has the Flow Sports contract, which is linked with a lot of local stations. I know. I'm pretty sure that I think I saw somewhere that Maine and the CAA they bypass all of the nationally broadcast ABC games and they broadcast Maine games on their local ABC channel, which is I
Wow.
think that's what it is. I mean, because I saw that they have a deal with their local ABC. So I mean, I was just thinking, it's like, what happens with the which I'm typing that up right now. I'm looking it up. But yeah, like I know. I'm not sure if any other conference has like partnerships like that. So Oh yeah, so like in 2021 they had my bad. It was a local Fox station, so it's big noon
Okay.
kickoff that gets pushed aside instead of the ABC game. So yeah, but that being said, I mean the MEAC has a lot to offer from an exposure standpoint too. But then again, it's like do do HBCU fans watch Thursday night games because they're HBCU games, like they're all HBCU games, or do they watch because because of one of the programs? Like would they still because they tune into a Morgan State, Delaware State game, would they tune into, like I said, a Charleston Southern South Carolina State game, or like potentially a Bryant Howard game on a Thursday night? So, it's always that kind of drawback.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. It's trying to figure out exactly because if anything, that's what any of the broadcasting what any of the networks would be more so concerned about is how many eyes they're going to get on that game. They don't necessarily care about who shows up live and what that matchup is going to be. The question is how many eyes are going to be on that game when they broadcast it, especially on a Thursday night, going up against NFL on a Thursday as well. Um, yeah, and I guess it would have to be they would have to be extremely strategic on how they would do that on Thursday.
Absolutely. And I looked again at the main page. Those games, those three home games. Sorry to go back off topic. Those three main home games are actually aired on ABC. They're aired on Fox and the tape delay on Monday afternoon. But yeah, so that's a very interesting thing. But yeah, sorry,
Wow.
that's another tangent. But so I mean, so many questions to ask with conference alignment. Just when you thought it was over, I mean, which I'm sure we all did. With USC and UCLA, it's just back on again. So I guess we're just in a constant realignment sort of state. So the MEAC is no, I guess not stranger, is also included in that as well as all the FCS conferences are. So we'll see how the dominoes fall. Do you have anything else to add to that topic, Dwayne?
Other than the fact that, of course, expansion is most definitely a trickle down effect. It starts from the top, moving its way down to FCS and even potentially Division two programs as well. That's something that I said once Oklahoma and Texas left the Big 12 to go to SEC was that it was going to end up causing this type of effect. But God knows, did we think that this was what was going to happen? And I truly don't believe that any of these group of five programs or conferences are done yet. I don't know exactly what the future is going to hold, but until they get this thing to stabilize itself on the Power Five level, um, all these other conferences, these group of five conferences, and FCS conferences are going to have to just sit back and figure out exactly what that means for them. And that's another conversation, real quick, that has been tossed out too. Excuse me, are if these HBCU FCS programs will they move up to the FBS level? And I'm thinking to myself, would that necessarily be beneficial? Because if you're not moving up to a Power Five conference, I truly believe that the Group of Five is going to be very this is going to be extremely similar to the FCS. And would it necessarily behoove you to actually move up and put yourself in that situation where all you end up doing is spending more money to get more scholarships, but your immediate it's not be better. Exposure might not be better, especially if you're in the MEAC and SWAC, because you already have a bowl game. And what you're going to end up moving up to potentially do what? Playing a bowl game? You already got that. Matter of fact, you got that, and it's aired on ABC every year. So what's the point? Other than what status? Say that you're FBS doesn't mean much. Doesn't mean much to me.
I know that the payouts for paycheck games are higher for an FBS program. I know that's something that
Gotcha.
Mario Mocha, the New Mexico State athletic
But
director, when they in their bout with independence, he said there's no question because he mentioned the paycheck game payouts. But aside from that, though, you're completely right because um, a lot of those bowl spots are just like TV fodder and on weeknights in December. So it's like the Celebration Bowl, network TV, 12 Eastern on Saturday on ABC. Like it's a pretty good it's a pretty good TV spot compared to a lot of these bowl games. So yeah, I'm just surprised. I know Tennessee State is one program that's like considered that the end goal. I guess FBS football. But in my eyes, they'd probably have to play games at Nissan Stadium in the Titans' home, and they
Yeah.
would become essentially Temple 2.0, where they're not selling tickets and they're just playing an NFL stadium. So, no
Yeah.
offense to Temple, it's a quality program, but it's that's just a situation. You play in a 65 seat stadium, you're not feeling it unless you're playing Notre Dame or 2025, I think, where they're playing Oklahoma. Like it's just not a great situation.
Not at all. But to your point about the what a lot of us like to refer to as paycheck games, um, I'm thinking a lot of those will end up shrinking up within the near future, especially against Power Five or whatever, however many power conferences they're going to be in the future, because you're already looking at a couple of conferences with 16 members. If they're looking to add a couple of more, that makes them what, maybe 18, 20? And if you end up having three conferences of 18 to 20 teams, that's, let me do my quick math, 56 to 60 teams within those three conferences. And chances are of them playing OOCs are going to be low, if none, because you already are dealing with 8 to 6, well, somewhere between 16 to 20 members. You're not going to necessarily have time to play OOCs, and you probably won't play in any lesser programs. So what's the point? So I'm thinking that you're going to end up losing money there too.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a scary thought because I mean, yeah, and, like a lot's gonna change. Hopefully, a lot may change. I should say, but I mean, hopefully, a lot of things don't. But yeah, that's just a great point too. I guess on the whole conference alignment moves to FBS. But yeah, I mean, that's all I have to say really too. I guess leaving on that sobering thought. Dwayne, do you have anything else to add?
Not at all. Well, yeah, I do. Real quick, you can most definitely check me out on herosports.com. Uh, and of course, on my social media, Twitter and on Instagram and on Facebook at the Yard HBCU. But I released my MEAC and SWAC previews just last week on herosports.com. In the next week or two, I'm going to be releasing my top games to watch, both in conference and out of conference, for the MEAC and the SWAC, and for Tennessee State, North Carolina A&T, for Hampton, coming up this upcoming season. So, yeah, those things should be coming out very soon.
Absolutely. I mean, I'll be looking forward to them too. I mean, I always enjoy writing those previews on Hero Sports. Yeah, so had to put a quick banner down there as well, not just to Twitter, but follow or read Dwayne's writing on Hero Sports, which is a great site. Not only do they do HBCU, of course, but like all the FCS. They have a great core of writers as well. So yeah, just check out Dwayne's writing, follow him on Twitter, and yeah, I have nothing else to add. Dwayne, it's been a pleasure as always to have you on. We'll definitely link up during the season. Discuss some hot topics that come up. But yeah, until next time, everyone, peace, love, and soul. I'm not in the frame. Okay.